have Ping delivered the perfect balance between distance, forgiveness and adjustability in their latest driver? And how much can that rear adjustable weight really help with shot shape correction? Let's go find out. So this is the brand new Ping G440 K driver, which comes in to replace the previous Ping G430 Max 10K driver. So yes, you've guessed it, this model is all about forgiveness. Ping are saying this is for the player who wants both maximum speed, but also that maximum forgiveness. But as well as being long, straight and forgiving, this is Ping's most adjustable forgiving driver ever. So on the back of here, we've got a 32 gram adjustable weight, which can be kept in a neutral, fade or draw bias position. That's just going to add another level to the fittings here and really means we can add in more shot shape correction. So what are the changes in technology that make this more forgiving and more adjustable? A lot of the improvements actually come from reposition weighting, weight savings in certain areas where we don't want heavier material, and then moving that heavier weight into the back. So this weight is now 4 grams heavier than we've seen in previous adjustable models. And we've also taken weight out in areas like the heel, so we've got something called free hosel technology in here. That saved 3 grams out of the hosel, which means the whole heel area of the face is a little bit faster, so you're going to retain more ball speed if you strike it off centre there. The sole is 3.5 grams lighter, the crown is 1.5 grams lighter, which means this model has a deeper and lower CG. That's going to give us more MOI, more forgiveness, also probably a little bit more launch and spin. In terms of spec, I've quite recently had a fit-in with Ping, so I currently use their G440 Max driver. So I've got the same shaft in this, and that's the Ping Tour Chrome 2.0. It's in a 65 stiff. Then in the club head, I've gone for the 9-degree loft because generally I don't have any trouble launching it. This model is available in 9, 10.5 and 12 degrees of loft. It's also available in a high launch build where the weight on the back's a little bit lighter, so 28 grams instead. So perfect for golfers who need a little bit extra height. I'm very excited to see how this performs because we all just love a bit of forgiveness, don't we? And I would love to hit more fairways, so I'll take anything that allows me to do that. Especially here, I'm at the Alto Club in Soto Grande. Amazing course, loving the views, but very tree-lined and tight, so a little bit of extra forgiveness could probably help me out. I really like the consistency we've got on the crown and the design here. It really feeds through from the G440 range. So to me, visually, this looks so close to my G440 Max, and that's very comforting. It is a little bit longer front to back. Personally, I don't mind that, and I don't think you would really notice unless you literally put the two next to each other head to head. I do think the two-tone colouring of that dual carbon fibre wrap really sits nice behind the ball. I like how the kind of front matte black section really frames the golf ball and gives you a really nice alignment cue. Okay, well if they all go like that, I'll be very happy. Didn't actually feel like my best strike. I think maybe it was a tad toey, but straight down the middle. Tick for forgiveness. So that carried 219. Definitely not my best in terms of strike location, but I really liked the fact that that was like a high toe strike and the spin still stayed up, so over 2000. You could see it still really kept its shape very well, and also the flight stayed nice and high, so that was still up at 82 feet. We like it when our missed strikes still look good. That was flush. You could hear how much faster that one was, couldn't you? Hitting a pretty strong draw here, but the wind is quite significantly right to left. That was actually a lot more neutral of a shot than it looked like. So that was 224.8 yards of carry, 2,489 spin. My club head speed was 93.9, which is maybe not my quickest, and sometimes we do see that if we move to more forgiving heads with bigger profiles, you might move them a little bit slower. But actually the ball speed was still in the 140s, which I think for that club head speed is really efficient, and that's because we've got a 1.5 smash factor, so we're getting a lot out of this club face. Height 82 feet, again, I really like that shot shape we're getting and the height. I think it's really nice. 2 out of 2 shots in the fairway as well, which we also like. You know what, it feels really solid off the face and it sounds great. I remember a few years ago, some of the Ping drivers sound quite high pitched, and they've done a lot of work inside the club head with ribbon to really change that sound, feel and acoustics, and I think they've really nailed it. 1.5 smash again. It's going to be interesting to see how much distance we can get out of this in this wind. I mean, those last 2 shots are nearly identical ball flights. So my longest carry so far there, 226.9 yards. That was actually from 95 clubhead speed. I feel like because I've got quite confident with this going straight and having a nice shot shape and a nice flight, that I hit at it a little bit more. Actually still the ball speed was 140 though. Spin did drop a tad, 2,100, but still up at 87 feet, which is really good. You can't get over how consistent those are. It's really interesting when you're picking driver, I think, getting the right balance between different variables. So obviously distance is a huge one everyone looks at. For me, I'm really trying to dial in dispersion at the moment, and I've definitely found for me keeping that spin number consistent or a little bit higher has really helped me out in terms of that dispersion. I think that's something Ping are really good at. They're always focused on having all the variables right. I think that's something I feel really confident with my Ping driver, and what I'm definitely seeing here is like the spin number stays up high enough on off-centre strikes, and also in general just doesn't get too low, so it holds my ball on line a little bit better. Tell you what, when I get one, it does sound fast. So it seems to me, for me to get the most distance out of this, I have to be swinging at about 95.5. And just with the kind of bigger profile of this, I do feel like I kind of have to consciously remember to tell myself to hit it. Now I feel quite confident doing that because I look down at it, it's comforting, the shaping's really confidence inspiring. And to be honest, I've hit so many shots dead straight down the fairway that I feel confident to stand there and hit it hard. I do have to kind of remember to do it. So I suppose that's kind of up for you to decide if you like to stand there and hit it aggressively. For me, I know my bad shot out on the course is when I feel not confident and I don't hit it aggressively. So actually having a club that I can stand there and hit it really hard is actually really good for me, because generally when I hit it hard, I perform the best. And it's actually quite interesting. We do see that in a lot of scenarios. Sometimes if people are like swing speed training or long drives type golfers, the dispersion actually gets better when they hit it harder. It's almost like having less confidence and not quite going at it ruins your sequencing a little bit. But again, that's going to be a bit down to personal preference. I also would say like not everything's about all out distance. So if you just want to see the ball going on the fairway a lot, also a great option. So I was 224.7 yards in terms of carry, which is pretty much where I've seen drivers sit this year when I've been using them like outdoors in the current type of temperature. Indoors when I'm warmed up, or in summer when it's warmer temperature, that's probably going to look at more like 235. Just pausing for a second to give you a chance to hit that subscribe button. Go on, it's right there. Over 80% of people watching my videos aren't currently subscribed, and actually having a bigger subscriber number really helps in terms of what kit I can get my hands on to bring great reviews back to you. So please hit that subscribe button, and while you're there, you might as well drop this video a like and drop us a comment about what else you want to see on the channel. Okay, pretty happy with the data I've got there. What I want to do now is just fiddle around with this adjustable weight and show you how much shot shape correction we can get here. So we're going to put this into the fade setting first. Basically what this does is add more weight into the toe section of the club. So the theory behind that is as you're coming through impact, the toe of the club's going to move slower, so it's not necessarily going to square as quickly. So in theory you should have a bit more of an open face, which obviously means you're more likely to hit the ball to the right. Now that's not always necessarily the case. Sometimes people will feel the weights in a different place and do the opposite of what you meant to, which sometimes I do. But let's see what happens. Probably do with a little bit more fade bias in this crosswind, to be fair. Okay, that made a lot of difference. I promise I didn't try to do that. That's just what happened. It does always amaze me how much like that weight can change the ball flight from just moving it a couple of millimeters, really. So the carry on that's actually dropped down a little bit for me, so 220, 2,603 spin. The spin's gone up a little bit for me with the weight in that position. Some of that's just because you're presenting the club a little bit differently and the face is a little bit more open. Again, because of that, the ball's gone a lot higher. You probably saw that in the shot trace, so that was up at 97 feet. I mean, the sideways dispersion is so different though. It is mad. That was flushed. So if we look at the dispersion there, definitely a lot more right bias. That doesn't mean to say you're always going to hit it off the planet right. It just means you're going to be less likely to really shut the face down, which to be honest is actually quite good for me. If I wanted to hit the left side of the course out, that'd probably help me out a lot. I have a really strong grip, so I can get a really shut face, which isn't nice sometimes. Okay, let's do what I never want to do. and put this into an even more draw bias setting. Now, generally I'd say if you're a slicer of the ball, this is the setting you want to be looking at. Because we've got more weight in the heel now, this is going to speed up the movement of that toe, shut the face down more, get the ball starting further left. We all know I can hit it left, so let's pray for the left side of the golf course. Hope I don't lose any golf balls here. Although, you know, maybe my club face is just at maximum shut, so it can't get any more shut. We'll see. Oh, yeah. See how that ball flight's dipped lower and turned over a lot more? It is mad to me how much difference moving that makes. Now that's actually lost quite a lot of distance for me, which is interesting and shows you the importance of getting the right flight and the right spin. So the launch angle there has dropped down a lot lower to 8.8. The apex of that ball flight was only 49 feet, so it's really just not flown high enough to get the max carry distance. That did spin just over 2,000 though, which I'm really impressed with. And actually from like the way that set off, how far left it set off, and how much it was turning, it would have disappeared a lot more if there wasn't as much forgiveness in this head, because that spin would have just tanked and it would have been in the forest. So props to Ping for the extra forgiveness there. Love the feel, the speed, the distance and the forgiveness of this. Don't necessarily love it in the draw by setting, but that's my strong grip problem. I feel like I just really consciously tried to counter that. That is also another thing to remember. You can just get used to something and tweak your swing. So if I look at the data there, because I'm a decent golfer and I look at that shot and I don't want to hit it miles left, I move my swing path 3 degrees further right then to get the ball going further right. That's why it's obviously good to have all the data when you're being fit, so you can see if you're adjusting your swing to the club or if you're just swinging and the club's working for you. Actually hitting it quite good in this set now. I spoke too soon. I mean, that was a long, fast left, but it was still left. I'd definitely say I was more consistent with this in either neutral or fade bias. To me, that felt a lot more comfortable. I feel like I'm having to manipulate it a lot to kind of get the right shots here, which you can see in the dispersion because it's way bigger than it was with either of the other two settings. So that's also something to look out for in fittings. If you feel like you're working too hard, that's probably not the right setup for you. I think it's really nice that Ping have added that level of adjustability into this head. A lot of times when we move into the like max, most forgiving models, people don't have that adjustable weight track on the back because it takes up a lot of weight, and sometimes it can drop down the overall forgiveness of the head in order to provide that adjustability. But actually what Ping have delivered here is a club that's really consistent, forgiving, was really helping me out on some of my not so good strikes, but also has that added adjustability there so you can really dial in your shot shape. Sometimes you feel like you give that up when you're picking a more forgiving model, but actually in this you're getting the best of both worlds, which I really like. I'm gonna hit a couple now with my G440 Max from last year. I know this isn't like directly designed to replace that, but I just think it'll be interesting to see the differences. You know what's interesting? My club head speed was 93.4 on that. I thought it was going to drop up when I moved back into this with a slightly smaller club head. Didn't make a difference. It's just me. It's definitely not quite as draw biased, this model, is it though? Obviously because it's a slightly smaller club head, it means there's less weight as far back as we have in the other model. So the more weight we get back and low in terms of the CG, the more likely it is to be draw biased just because of how far back the weight sits. I suppose in theory you could say that's better for me when my miss is left, but then you could also just put the other model into the fade setting, so trade-offs. 92.2 club head speed there, I'm getting slower. I still had 120 carry though, but spin down at 2000. The K head does seem faster so far. Very consistent shots though. The G440 K is currently about 3.5 yards longer on average. I mean, they're both just great drivers, aren't they? I've hit a lot of fairways between those two models. 227 carry on that one, longest yet. Okay, let's look at all the final numbers. I think it's important to note at this point that Ping and other brands don't expect people to move into each new model that comes out. So I have the Ping G440 Max from last year. Ping are not expecting people who've bought into that range to buy into the 2026 range generally. They're more looking at kind of a 3 to 5 year cycle. So if you bought a driver like 3 to 5 years ago, you're the kind of target market of people they think might now want to upgrade. So really we should be looking at comparisons in that kind of window of time. But it's still interesting to look at like the small incremental gains we get year on year. The Ping G440 K ended up being 2 yards longer on average. It was also flying a little bit higher and spinning about 100 RPM more, so 2,500 versus 2,400 with the Ping G440 Max. I just think the most interesting thing was seeing how much the shots changed with the draw or fade bias, and we can especially see that in the spin. So the spin jumped up to 2,700 when we put the K into the fade setting, so 200 RPM more, and it drops down to 2,300 when we put it in the draw setting. So that shows you just how much the face angle impact also affects spin, as well as kind of the loft of the head you've got, how spinny the head is, the shaft you're using. There's so many different variables that go into affecting that spin. This was also the same with height. So it flew on average 10 feet lower in the draw setting than it did in the neutral setting, and then 10 feet higher in the fade setting. So it's actually 20 feet of height between the draw and the fade shots, which is pretty mental. It didn't affect total carry distance as much, so we were about 4 yards down on average with the draw just because it was lower and not keeping in the air long enough. But on some extreme shots, that did drop down almost 20 yards to 203.6. And obviously that's because I hit a draw and then it was draw biased and then it wasn't necessarily my best shot. But it does go to show you how sometimes having a club in the wrong setting can not help you out. Neutral and fade both perform really well for me in terms of distance, only 1 yard difference between the two. The fade actually snuck out there being 1 yard longer. And I think I could use this driver in either of those settings and feel really comfortable. For me, it's more trying to decide if I want to teach myself to have like a weaker grip and not shut the face down as much, or if I just want to open the face up and let the club do the work for me. I think that's kind of what you have to decide. A lot of time when I go see consumers being fit or play with players at my golf club, the big shot people struggle with is a slice, so it makes sense to get a driver and set it up really draw bias, and that's fine if you're someone who doesn't want to work on your swing, just enjoys golf, wants to play socially, accepts that you hit a shot left to right, because you can set all your clubs up in your bag to be more draw bias. I would say, however, if you're gonna go on the tee, set your driver up to be really draw biased and then not do anything with your irons, that could be a bit of an issue because your body's going to learn to just like keep hitting that slice because the club's counter correcting it, and then you're obviously going to then slice your other clubs. So when we're working on like shot correction, it is important to think about how that affects the whole bag because it's all well and good getting a driver that hides your slice, but if you've still got that swing tendency, we also need to look at other areas in the bag and what we're going to do there. But as always, I would just say Ping have really smashed it with this driver this year. Obviously, I've come from using a Ping driver for a season, so it felt super comfortable to me, but I think that is the big thing with Ping. You know they're going to deliver, it's going to be consistent, it's going to be stable, it's going to be really confidence inspiring, it's going to make you feel like you can hit more fairways, and who doesn't need more of that? They're so consistent, they're so reliable, and that gives me a lot of confidence, and having confidence in the club you're hitting is half the battle, isn't it? If you stand there and feel confident, you're way more likely to hit a good shot and hopefully hit more balls in the fairway.